minded scribe and was not writing it in the 1st century BC? Mr. Cross does not answer that question. So we have the whole theory of the dating of these scrolls built up on the level of paleography, and I answered all that in my book Maccabees, Zadokites, Christians, and Qumran. Now, I asked for the carbon dating. What did the Jerusalem establishment do? It's sort of like in Jesus' days, you know. They then used the carbon dating against me and others by trumpeting the results that they got. But the whole caveat that we gave to our friend Drury, who's down here pounding us again, and we are putting ourselves in a position to be pounded, and I shan't put myself in that position again with him. The whole caveat that we gave when we demand or asked Drury to do the carbon-14 testing of Qumran manuscripts was that opposition people be included in the process. What does our friend Mr. Shank say? Mr. Shank says, Eisenman demanded to be included in the process. I didn't demand to be included in the process. I said that the process would be useless if opposition people were not involved in it to signal what text they considered worth dating. But our friends didn't care what text they dated because they were not interested in confirming or denying our theories. Therefore, they dated a whole list of rather useless texts. The Damascus fragments were not dated. The Habakkuk Pesher was not dated. The Nahum Pesher was not dated. The War Scroll was not dated. All the texts that they dated were rather uninteresting. And then they trumpeted that they had disproved our theories and proved the Essene theory. And that was the way information is managed in this field and continues to be managed. Well, we would have dated this text because we would like to know from Cross's paleography whether the old fragment of the Damascus document really differed from the Habakkuk commentary. You say, what are you talking about? The Habakkuk commentary also mentions the traitors and the liars. Now, if the Habakkuk commentary that we have dates to the 1st century, and we think it does, and this text came out to carbon date to the 2nd century BC, the old handwriting style of the Damascus document, we would be in a kind of a problem. But I cannot conceive that two texts talking about the same characters would carbon date that far off. Anyway, we'd like to see these things. That's why we wanted to be in on the process. We wasn't on the process. They didn't consult us, didn't ask us, and don't care about us. So the results that they have piped around the world, we don't accept. I just got finished writing an article to our friend Herschel Shanks in Washington, D.C., correcting all of the mistakes he made, talking about my ideas about paleography, and that'll be printed in the next one. In fact, in the space of about 2 pages, he made it to 13 mistakes. I mean, this is from friends. So if you get that kind of treatment from friends, I mean, God knows what you can expect from enemies. You can imagine what this silly field is like. I mean, it's best to get out of this field if you can. It just brings you to grief, huh? Let me just finish this up and let you folks go. I want to just go into the second column. I'm not going to obviously get past the first column. I wanted to go into the 3 nets of Belial, but it is, as you see, rather hopeless. And my classes are something like this, aren't they, Dennis? We go on like this, and it takes us. I know there's a lot of guys who teach at universities, and I hear about them all of the time. They never come to class, and they're busy doing their research, or they're translating some text, and then their students are all waiting for them, and they just don't continue to get through a whole class with their students. And yet they become very famous scholars because they published this magnum opus of some kind. That may be good and that may be right, but I must say what we do in our classes, good or bad, is we do go through these texts, and it takes us a good year to go through them because we go through them page by page. The way we're doing now, we really go through them page by page. And to do that just takes a lot of time. Now, you always should be careful of people who talk about a text abstractly and don't read you page for page from it, because they're often saying things about the text that they're not proving from the text. If a person can go through the text with you page for page and show you what it is he or she is talking about, I think you're on pretty safe ground in being able to follow and see if in fact it's in the text. So I would think it takes this kind of time to go through these things. A good reading of this document, the Damascus document, I think takes, the way we're doing it, about 5 hours. Habakkuk Pesher takes about 3. The War Scroll you can do much faster. The Community Rule you can do much faster. So to do a class in these things, you need a good 20 or 30 hours just to go through the text, forgetting about the historical background. But let's read a little bit more of this here. Okay, so he made known to this last generation, congregation of traitors, those who departed from the way. This was the time which is written, a quotation from Hosea, stubborn heifer was Israel, she was stubborn, etc., etc., etc. Then we have the allusion to the scoffer. By the way, scoffer is Vermesh's language. The actual language is Latson, and it looks to me, I don't know where he gets scoffer from, it's gesture or comedian. And I think it's better word, comedian, because I think it's kind of a joke. And this guy is a joker. A certain joker, like you would talk about a comedian. This guy took him so seriously, but he was a joke. I don't think it's a scoffer as such. It's kind of a Latson. It's a kind of scoffer. It's a kind of comedian. In any case, a comedian arose. What did this comedian do here, or this joker or scoffer, if you prefer? That, by the way, is in several texts. This personality. Again, the Habakkuk commentary, paralleling the Damascus document on every phrase here. He shed, or he poured. Poured is the word. He poured, like baptismally pouring waters. And later on, he's called the pour out of, not waters, but the pour out of lying, the matif hakazav. Here he is the Latson who pours out waters of lies. He pours out lying. Now, in the conventional interpretation of Qumran scrolls, this person is one of the Maccabees, and he's also identified with the wicked priest. And it's quite obvious that the liar and the wicked priest are totally different people. And you can see that yourself. I think I was one of the first people to make that very, very clear. Rarely get the credit for that, but